There's a moment at the end of the life that science has struggled to quantify. The moment the soul departs. For centuries, we've tried to measure it, even weighing the dying to capture the mass of an escaping spirit. But what if we've been searching for the wrong proof? What if the dead don't just leave a weightless void, but a lingering trace on the air itself? A scent. This is not the stale odor of an old forgotten room, nor the scent of decay. According to enduring belief, the presence of the unseen is often signaled by something far more deceptive. A sudden, intoxicating aroma of flowers. This scent can manifest anywhere, in a quiet alleyway, the corner of a modern home, or on an empty path. It is an impossible scent, a fragrant anomaly that should not exist. The theory behind the phenomenon is that the departed may leave a signature, not of loss, but of lingering perceptible essence. And our most primal sense becomes the only thing that can warn us that we are sharing our space with something that we cannot see. There is a place where the air itself carries a warning. In Indonesia, a sudden inexplicable fragrance isn't a curiosity, it is an omen. The scent of flowers, particularly jasmine or frangipani, are deeply woven into the cultural understanding of the unseen. It is a warning that sudden inexplicable fragrance is not a mystery, it is an intrusion. The scent is a trespasser, violating the air to let you know that you are no longer in a space you control. As for the phenomenon, there's a poetic haunting theory for its origin. In many parts of Indonesia, it is tradition to sprinkle the recently deceased with flowers, like jasmine, when they are laid to rest. The speculation is that the soul, in its transition, carries the most potent memory of its final moments, the scent of those sacred flowers. According to this belief, the soul becomes so imprinted with this floral essence that it becomes a part of its new, unseen form. So, when a presence is felt, it is not announced by a cold chill, but by this fragrant echo of its own burial. The beautiful, terrifying aroma is the scent of a soul remembering its own goodbye. This belief transforms the experience entirely. A home, a place of comfort can be violated without a sound. The air grows heavy with the sweet scent of jasmine. There are no flowers, no logical source, only the undeniable fragrant evidence of an invisible occupant. This confirms a terrifying proximity. The departed are not in some distant realm, but here, sharing in our air, announcing themselves with a fragrance that is both beautiful and fundamentally wrong. To truly grasp the weight of this warning, imagine the following scenario. The first thing Sari noticed was the scent of jasmine. It was a quiet Tuesday evening. The last plate had been wiped and put away, and the soft glow of a single lamp held back the night outside her kitchen window. Then suddenly, she smelt it. The scent was sudden and absolute. It's as if someone had snapped a bouquet right under her nose. She frowned, looking around her empty abode. There were no flowers, and the windows were sealed against the outside air. This scent, it was beautiful, and that was the problem. It was too beautiful, too perfect, and it had no right to be there. A cold, thin thread of unease began to weave through her. She stood up, her socked feet silent on the glistening ceramic floor. She checked the small balcony. Nothing. She ran her hand over the clean dry sink, thinking of spilled soap. Nothing but the faint clean smell of dishwasher soap. The scent persisted. It didn't fade or waver. It was a constant oppressive presence, violating the neutral, safe atmosphere of her home. It was an intrusion, a trespasser that had slipped in without a sound, without a shadow, and now laid claim to the very air she breathed. She returned to her chair, but the comfort was gone. The familiar geometry of her living room felt alien, the walls seeming to hold their breath, and the shadows on the corner of her eyes were no longer empty. They were occupied spaces, their stillness now feeling deliberate and watchful. Her own house had become a stage, and she was the sole unwilling audience to a presence that announced itself only by scent. Her mind, once a place of order, was now a locked room with a single terrifying occupant. The knowledge that she was no longer alone. Minutes stretched into an hour. The jasmine remained, a fragrant ghost that refused to leave. It wasn't a warning of something to come. It was the evidence of something that had already happened. A breach. A line had been crossed in a way she could not see or hear, only smell. The safety of her home was an illusion, and the scent was proof. She finally went to bed, leaving all the lights on. She lay in the silence, the sweet, cloying air filling her lungs. She did not sleep. She simply waited, knowing with the cold certainty that she was not alone. It was near dawn when the change began. The scent, once so potent it felt solid, began to thin. It didn't vanish all at once, but retreated in slow, languid waves. The heavy sweetness that had coated her tongue and the back of her throat receded, leaving behind only a memory of its intensity. She lay perfectly still, tracking its retreat like an animal sensing a predator's withdrawal. The air in her bedroom began to return to its normal, natural state. The smell of clean linen and stillness. The scent was the proof. It came without a sound and it left the same way. It wasn't a dream. It was a visitor. Something had been in her home. Something she couldn't see. It had moved through her rooms, and it had taken its time. It only left when it decided to. The empty air now felt like a threat. It was a quiet warning that the visitor could come back anytime it wanted. She finally rose as the sun cast weak gray light into the room. The house was now scentless, but it was not clean. It was profaned. She walked through the rooms, her hand trailing over the back of her sofa and to the cool marble of her countertop. These objects were hers, but the space they occupied was not. It was a shared space, a place that could be breached at any moment, for any reason, by something that operated on rules she could never hope to understand. The dread did not leave with the scent. It solidified. It became a cold, hard stone in her gut, a permanent resident. The horror was not in the presence of the jasmine, but in its departure. It had proven that the world was permeable, that the fundamental safety of four walls and a roof was the flimsiest of constructs. Her home was no longer a sanctuary. It was a monument to a truth she could never unknow, that no space was ever truly hers alone. And so the scent departs, leaving behind only a profound and unsettling silence. But where does it come from? Science offers no answer for a perfume with no source. Yet, within the culture where this belief persists, there is a speculation, a poetic and haunting theory that connects the world of the living to the rituals of the dead. But this fragrant echo does not always signal a benign visitor. Sometimes it announces something else entirely. A whole different scent of the frangipani flower may be a sign of a presence of a famed well-known entity among Indonesian circles. The scent of this specific flower is given a name and a form in local folklore. It is a specific harbinger, most famously linked to a specific entity, the Kuntilanak. In these stories, the Kuntilanak is a female spirit, and the scent of frangipani is her signature calling card, a beautiful fragrant warning that announces her presence moments before she is seen. This transforms the experience from a strange sensory glitch into a directed event. The scent is no longer just a phenomenon. It is a signal tied to a known and feared intelligence. It always begins subtly. The crunch of Andy's footsteps on the gravel shoulder of a rural road was the only sound for miles. The night was deep, the air cool and clean, but then a shift. A delicate fragrance of frangipani bloomed in the air. He glanced around, expecting to see a garden, but there were only dark rice fields and silent sleeping houses. He shrugged, stuffing his hands deeper into his pockets, and kept walking. But the scent didn't fade. It grew, leading him forward like an invisible thread. And then he saw it, the source. Under a rotting banana tree, at the edge of a field, stood a woman. The moonlight seemed to cling to her, illuminating long flowing black hair and a dress of pristine white. She was turned away from him, a silhouette of perfect silent beauty, and the mesmerizing, intoxicating scent of frangipani seemed to radiate from her very being. Drawn by an impulse he didn't understand, Andy took a step off the road. His boots sinking into the soft soil, he took another, closing the distance, his rational mind silenced by the haunting vision. Then his foot came down on a patch of dry brittle leaves hidden in the grass. The crunch was deafening. The woman's head snapped towards the sound. It wasn't a human turn. It was a swift, mechanical twitch. The beautiful profile was now a full-faced nightmare. The skin that had seemed pearlescent was now a waxy, sickly pallor. The features were stretched and gaunt, and her eyes were bottomless black pools that reflected no light. The enchanting scent of frangipani curdled in the air, becoming thick, cloying, and sickly sweet, just like the smell of petals left to rot in the sun. It pushed down on him, a solid, suffocating weight. Their eyes locked. Andy blinked, and she was gone. The space under the tree was empty. A fraction of a second of relief was then shattered by a new sound that erupted from the darkness directly behind him. The frantic, wet sound of clicking footsteps rushing towards him through the dark. The figure Andy encountered was no ordinary ghost. It was a Kuntilanak, a spirit deeply rooted in the folklore of Southeast Asia, whose very definition is tragedy. The name itself reveals its origin. It is derived from the Melayu word perempuan mati beranak, a woman who died in childbirth. This foundational tragedy is the source of its enduring rage and sorrow. She is not merely a ghost. She is a mother and a child, eternally bound in a state of unresolved anguish. Her common depiction is that of a beautiful woman with long flowing hair and a white gown. But this beauty is a lure, a disguise for a profound grotesquerie. In many tales, her back is a hollow, a visceral reminder of her death. She is said to appear during the full moon, often accompanied by the haunting scent of the Cambodia or the frangipani flower, a bloom most commonly associated with graveyards. Her legend serves a dual purpose. Superficially, she is a vengeful spirit who terrorizes villages, particularly targeting men whom she is said to seduce and kill. But on a deeper level, the stories often function as a cautionary tale, a way to discourage women from walking alone at night by populating the darkness with a terror that preyed on the men who might harass them. And like any potent myth, it comes with a set of rules for protection. Beliefs vary by region, but a common thread is the use of sharp objects. Pregnant women might carry nails, knives, or scissors to ward her off. The most definitive defense, however, is as precise as it is brutal. To stop a Kuntilanak, one must seal her fate by driving a nail into the hollow at the nape of her neck, or some say, the crown of her head, returning her to a state of bliss, peaceful death. So, when a scent of frangipani blooms in the void, it is not just a presence, it's the calling card of a specific, tragic, and vengeful intelligence, a being whose very existence is the paradox of beauty and horror, whose story is woven from the most profound of human losses. And this brings us back to the chilling universal question. Why does this specific disguise, the scent of flowers, work so well? Flowers are nature's ultimate contradiction. They are the pinnacle of life, beauty, and celebration. Yet, they are inherently temporary. Their very purpose is to bloom, to be beautiful, and then to die. They are life, already in the process of decay. This is the perfect embodiment of the uncanny valley. Our brain is wired to find the scent of flowers pleasant. It signals life, fertility, beauty. But when that scent is stripped of its source, when it blooms in a void, it becomes a predator. The familiar becomes alien. The pleasure centers of your brain registers the beauty, while the primal, instinctual part screams in terror. This internal conflict is far more paralyzing than the stench of rot. Rot is simply death, but a beautiful scent in a deadly situation, that is a violation of the natural order. In the West, a ghost might announce itself with a chill, but here in Indonesia, the signal is a scent, a beautiful fragrant lie, woven into the very air we breathe. This reminds us that the supernatural is not always a monster from the shadows. Sometimes it's a whisper from the void, wearing a disguise that disarms our deepest instincts. It speaks a language older than fear itself, the language of memory and beauty, twisted into a warning. So, the next time a fragrance stops you in your tracks, a scent of flowers with no source. Take note of that primal hesitation. The fear they inspire is real. The belief is ancient. And some messages carried on the wind are not for us to answer.